He is back and ready to go. Looks good as ever. Looks healthy. We got you back. We do have first pitch at the bank there in Philadelphia, Game 6. Nola v. Merrill Kelly coming up in about 6 minutes, boys. Amal Shaw, Dustin Sweetelson, I'm Patrick Maher. I know there's a baseball conversation, Fez, that you want to get to. Before we do you, Mr. Shaw, or you, Mr. Sweetelson, have a play you wanted to give out quickly on this baseball game coming up in Philly?
Yeah, I like the Phillies on the run line here today. I like the way Aaron Nola's pitched in this postseason. I think Zach Gallen could be in some trouble here. Merrill Kelly. I like the Phillies to close it out here today.
Big guy?
It's been no secret that I have a lot of tickets on the Texas Rangers to win it all. I also have 80-1, 34-1, and 20-1 on the Diamondbacks with I believe a 12 or 13-1 ticket on the Phillies. So I'm going to get my tickets paid for with the Diamondbacks, and I went money line on the Phillies at minus 190. If it hits tonight, it covers all my Diamondbacks money, and I'll do the same tomorrow because the Diamondbacks ticket is worth a lot more than I'm laying the next 2 days potentially.
Beautiful. And Mr. Fezzik, nice to see you. How are you?
He's already looking forward to Game 7. You got to love that. I am good. You know, my gut says the Phillies do win tonight, though, but I did not bet it.
There was a broader, as we were coming back from break, there was a broader baseball conversation that you wanted to implement here. Let's get into that.
So I've got a friend who is a ticket broker in a faraway place, and he is going to make, I don't know how he's got all these tickets, but apparently demand was huge in Texas for the World Series. Makes sense. Yeah. But not in Houston where they're spoiled. So he needs Houston to make the World Series desperately. So he's contracted with me, and I am getting him down Mattress Max style, betting Houston, trying to get him the best numbers physically possible. What's interesting, I feel it's a little bit like being a mutual fund, where if you're not cool and you buy too fast, the price is going to go up. So I've been nibbling on Houston minus 118, minus 120, minus 122, trying to get the very best price as the day has progressed because I have to get a big bet in for my buddy here.
Beautiful. And, of course, Texas Scherzer on the bump for the Rangers. A Game 7 tonight. Houston is going to throw Javier right now. Amal, Dustin, Javier, and, of course, Mr. Fezzik, $1.30. And coming back the other way, Scherzer plus 110.
Javier has been outstanding in this postseason, and you mentioned it earlier, Patrick, surprising that the number is as short as it is. To me, when you look at Max Scherzer, it's more of a name than anything else. If it was any other pitcher named Bob Smith and he had performed the way Max Scherzer has down the stretch, you'd be like, how is Houston not minus 175 or 160 or something, 150 in a spot like this, just based on the way Javier has pitched, the experience of that team, and where they've been?
You know, I do want to address how important it is to get the very best of the numbers. So I'm just going to throw this out. People could agree by a few cents. So the no vig number on this game should probably be like Houston minus 122, Texas plus 122. So if we had a casino, we didn't charge any vig. All right, so think about this. In terms of if you bet Texas, you're not getting 122, you're getting 110 on a 20-cent line. If you're betting Houston, you're not getting minus 122, you're getting minus 130. You see where I'm going. On a game of this magnitude where there's so much money being bet, if you think you can win getting 7 cents the worst of the number with the no vig number, you are delusional beyond delusional. So getting the very best of the number, critical to success in sports betting.
Yes, sir. And we were all discussing that total, big guy, a little bit earlier. Game 7, a little under 90 action for you. Not under 9, I should say, for
Definitely 90. I think I'm going to end up going with that under 9. Look, Christian Javier, career in the postseason, he's been there a lot. I know someone was as a reliever for Houston. 208 lifetime in the playoffs, man. This guy steps up when it matters. And on the other side for Texas, the only fear you have with that total is that Scherzer gets bombed. But it's Game 7 with a chance to go to the World Series. We're going to see Montgomery. We're going to see Gray. They're going to throw every live arm they can to get to the World Series and worry about who starts Game 1, which, by the way, is Friday, tomorrow.
Beautiful. Fez, what I want to do, because it looks like my man has been saving up some conversation topics, because you sent us over just a plethora of talking points. So we can get to Monday Night Football, which we haven't really discussed. Of course, it's 7 tonight. San Francisco dealing with injuries at Minnesota. Minnesota, obviously a desperate team, sitting 2-4. We can discuss that coming up in just a bit. But why don't we just go chronologically here and have some fun with some talking points from a professional handicapper. And we'll start with number 1, and that is the death of teasers. Go ahead and jump on that.
Oh, my goodness. Don't blame me. I didn't kill them. But teasers are donezo in Vegas. The very last place in Vegas that allowed you to play a 6-point teaser, minus 120. Caesars Palace, Caesars Harrah's, William Hill, now minus 125. So if you want to play, if we will go back in our time machine like 20 years, you could play 6-point teasers at minus 100. Some would call that even money and would say, it's total square ball to say minus 100. Then they became minus 110, then minus 120. And I was cool, even up to minus 120 playing Wong teasers. I'm out. Patrick, you're not going to win laying minus 125 or more. It's time to find another advantage opportunity. And this happens whenever you find something where you have the edge. Inevitably, eventually the sports books are going to take it away, and you're going to have to look somewhere else.
Yeah, Patrick, they've gone to minus 115 at MGM and Caesars now in second half place.
I saw that on sides.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, to me, these guys should man up and say, listen, if you kick our ass 6 ways to Sunday, we reserve the right to throw you out. There should be a sign on every one of the sports books before they take a wager from you.
Death of teasers to start with Mr. Fezzik. Number 2, the myth, pardon me, of misaligned games. Why don't we set this up? What do you mean by misaligned games, and why is it a myth?
So, I'd be the first to admit I've done this myself, where all the people are talking about a game, you're like, yeah, the total right now, I went under 59, and I make it 53, all right? So they're basically saying they think it should be 53, but they don't really believe it, all right? Because it's just good radio, and it's entertaining. But if it truly should be 53 and you're playing under 59, you should be betting like 15% of your bankroll on that play because or more, because your edge would be so obscene. Well, it never pans out in actual results, and the best thing I can give is I think the VSiN Invitational, I think they've recruited, of the 16 people in that this year, I would say 14 of them are very well qualified, solid bettors, if not professional bettors, and their record year to date is just above 50%, like 50.3%. Now, how can that be? How could they be sucking so bad? Because it's really, really difficult to beat numbers once they've been hammered into place against a book like Circa that takes big limits, which they do by Friday. So a whole lot of these people, you could say, I'll use an example, a guy who's on the cutting block to finish last. Randy McVeigh is a very, very sharp bettor. Chuck Adell's right there as well, an extremely sharp bettor. Would I want to book his action on Monday? Absolutely not. All right, that's a guy that's going to do really well. But by Friday, if you told me, hey, he's on the phone, he's going to give me his best bet, I'd be like, well, I'll get back to you after lunch. I don't care unless it's an information-breaking thing because it's so much more difficult to win. However, against an opener on Sunday night, absolutely, I will not eat and I will get that information. It's just learning, get at the openers, get at the games of the year, find ways to win against softer marketplaces.
Love it. Love it. And let me just kind of piggyback. So misaligned games and the myth. And then you said also kind of to accompany, we really need to clarify all these experts saying games are off by 3, 4, 5 points, etc. What do you mean by that?
So I've got on my shirt, I don't know if the first listener to identify it, go ahead and put it on Twitter, I'll buy you dinner. So it says Whitman, Price, Haddad. There they are, last season's winners, basking in the Maui sun. Anyone got that movie reference?
No, what is that? I don't know.
It's The Running Man. That's Killian talking to you, where they didn't they weren't actually last season's winners, unfortunately, as Fireball. Jim Brown, the stalker, disclosed. But what I'm saying is Richard Dawson, who's a great villain, comes out, and he's just like, he's so entertaining, and everyone loves him, but he's not speaking the truth. Games are not misaligned by 5 points. It's not 1992, back when Doc's Big Ten Game of the Year would win 12 straight years, and there were games that were way, way off. But in today's day and age, if a game is way off, I assure you, it's going to get taken out and down if it's publicly available information. And you're not going to see that great value stay on the board all the way through to Friday. Now, there's an exception to the rule. This does happen. My buddy Ken Thompson has given it to me before. He's got all these contacts in college basketball, and he's like, Fezzi, the top 2 leading scorers didn't even make the trip to Reno. Nobody knows about it. Okay, well, if you got info like that, that's different. When you have information that's not available to the marketplace, absolutely you can find plays, but those are so few and far between that you will rarely ever see them.
Well, let's keep going. You said it's not true when betting NFL sides. The best bettor in the world are not going to be able to get to 54%. Do you just want to keep going with that?
Sure. So what's happening is that people will argue with me and they'll say, no, I've hit 55%. And what happens inevitably, yeah, you hit 55% because you're really good at this and you nail, like Houston's playing and they're at Carolina. Poster child, all right? Carolina's a winless team off of a bye. It's the mother of all good spots. It's a good bet +3. It might be 53%, it might be 54%, but somebody got it +3.5. So there's your 60% type of bet that it doesn't mean it wins, but it's not going to hang out there for very long. And by Monday morning, by the time we're doing the show, people are like, why is Fez talking about +3.5? I'm having trouble finding +3. Well, yeah, because it was such a good play. And you know what? In the year 1998, you'd be betting +3.5 on Thursday. Now, if you sleep in and you miss breakfast, that 3.5 is gone, and it's never coming back.
The margin for a sports betting winner is razor thin. And Fez, you mentioned in your notes that you're looking for marginal edges that only generally exist early in the week. You got to get them on them early.
On sides, on props, there's still big edges to be had.
And the postseason, Steve Fezzik sent over just a ton of notes today. So much. He said during the break, I completely hijacked your show. No. This is exactly why we ask you to come in for an hour. There's so much knowledge from a professional handicapper that we can soak up. And we were talking about you're looking for marginal edges that often only exist early in the week. And Carolina coming off a bye in the NFL is an example. But we can also talk about Liberty coming up tomorrow night, and then Sam Houston State in college coming up on Wednesday night as well, Steve.
Yeah, so Liberty tomorrow night sitting as a 5-point favorite, and they're much better than Western Kentucky. And I want to caveat this. I can't name a college football player. I know nothing. And somehow I'm finding it so easy to find winners in the college football season on an epic run the last 2 weeks, and that's accolades to the people that I work with. But they like they like Liberty, but they're not going to lay 5. They're going to lay 3.5, and at 3.5, let's say that is indeed a 55% play. Well, the problem is they're probably going to win by exactly 4 points, maybe 2.5% of the time. So you see where I'm going. So now Liberty -3.5 is profitable. Liberty -4.5 becomes like break even, and Liberty -5, even though it wins a little more than it loses after you pay the vig, becomes a loser. I give out to my clients on the next night, Sam Houston State, -3. Really like it. Think it's a solid 55% play, but it's not -3 anymore. And you could see the problem.
Steve, can you just expand upon that a little bit for the average person that may not be as well versed? When you're saying from the 3.5 to 5, you're talking about a percentage decline in the opportunity to be able to win is basically what you're coming down to.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that let's assume that 5.5 is the correct number on Liberty. Let's use that. Okay, so if I lay 5.5 with Liberty, if I bet it 100 times, I go 50 and 50, right? But let's say I was able to get at a better number -3.5. Well, Liberty's going to win by exactly 5. Maybe 2 times out of 100. They're going to win by exactly 4, maybe 3 times out of 100. So if I play it 100 times -5.5, I go 50 and 50. I pay the vig and I lose. But if I lay 3.5, now I go 50 and 50, but then I capture 2 more wins and 3 more wins when they win by 4 or 5, and I go 55 and 45. And suddenly I'm styling with a 5% return on investment, and you can see the difference.
Beautiful. Why don't we use Sam Houston State on Wednesday to kind of further the example? Go for it, Steve.
Yeah, so let's assume that Sam Houston State indeed should have been -3.5. Okay, so 50% of the time they cover, 50% of the time they don't cover. No good laying 3.5. I'd still lean to Sam Houston State. But guess what? Bet it 100 times, maybe 7 times in the college football game, it'll land right on 3. So if I lay 3, now I'm not going 50 and 50. I'm going like 50, 43, and 7. Take the ties out. Well, 50 and 43 is 54%. So suddenly, again, I'm styling with a nice 3% ROI, provided I get the -3. And so the lesson from all this, lots of math. Warning, math, danger. But the point is it's very rarely right to play something. Even I don't care. Everyone's like, you talk to every sports book manager, and they're like, all the sharp money has been on this side. Well, it doesn't do you any good if the sharp money was at a different number. Once the number is compromised, now you're not getting the number. The pros are getting them all.
That's a really good point there. Well, let me ask you this. Is there kind of, depending on the sport, how much of a move you're willing to, say, kind of subject yourself to, whereas basketball compared to football,
God, such a great question. So depending upon the sport, it absolutely matters, depending on the time of year. Yeah. So an extreme example, let's say Air Force, back when they were like a real slow-down college basketball team, and they have assistant coaches that get promoted, and he becomes the head coach at Montana or somewhere, and the odds makers open up a Montana total at 140. Well, maybe that total should have been 122, that they just didn't adjust enough for the coaching change, et cetera. So there are games in college basketball. If you told me all things being equal, Patrick, the opener in a college basketball game, opening night is 140, and it's now sitting 136. You have to bet over or under. I'd say absolutely. I'll still go under 136 because the opening, it's so much harder to get that number right. However, same situation. Now it's February. Open 140 and it's 136. I'm like, if I have to bet that sucker, I am going over and fading the number. The move.
We've been talking to Steve for close to a decade now, and that brain that you hear with his math, it just works differently. So if we're trying to keep up, trust me, I've been trying to keep up for a long time as well. It's just numbers work differently in his brain, and they just keep coming out. Why don't we give, again, for those that missed it, the NFL example as well, where it's a slim margin and Carolina off the bye hosting Houston. Why don't you give that example?
Yeah, so Carolina, the current number is like 2.85, so it means it's like +3, lay $1.20, all right? But there were 3.5s this morning for a short period of time, and if 3 is the correct number, I'm not saying that it is, maybe it should be like closer to 2.5, but if 3 is the correct number, if you bet +3, you're going to go 45 wins, 45 losses, and 10 ties. NFL games land on the number at 3 more than college games. So you go 45, 45, and 10. You lose money because you have to pay the VIG. Not even close to profitable. But if you steal wins whenever that game lands on the number, now you're suddenly going 55 and 45, and you're hitting 55%, and you're world class in your betting. Even in the VSiN Invitational, I mentioned, I cited the record, and playing all games, not even key numbers. A lot of these games, are numbers that are almost impossible to hit, like a total that's on, say, a 46. But if you just give a half point extra to every contestant on all their plays, all of a sudden, all of their ties become wins, and they pick up 18 more wins, and some of their losses would become ties, such that 50.3% record would actually be, I believe, a profitable record if I add in the ties, even though they're just basically hitting 50% year to date, just getting an slim extra half point.
Yeah, I've got the math here. It's wild. It's wild to go through so that was VSiN Invitational. Now, a unique take. Warm weather teams struggle in the first game in cooler, subpar weather, and you've got a few examples. Shall we discuss the NFL examples, Steve?
Yeah, so I had an epiphany just 20 minutes ago because I discussed this, and people were like, there wasn't any, last time I checked, no one got carted off the field with hypothermia. It was like in the 50s. So the weather was fine. But you know what? If you're living in South Beach and the weather's phenomenal, the first cold weather game, marginal weather game, was playing in Philadelphia. And I do think it's not so much how cold it is. How cold is it versus what I'm used to? So I'm a high-flying offense that's used to playing in 80, 85 degrees, and I have to play in 53 degrees in the link. And I think it affected Miami last night. I think it affected Vegas when they had to go to Chicago. And I think it affected Arizona when they went ahead and played at Seattle. So there's the 3 teams, the warm weather, good weather teams that had to play in weather that wasn't bad, but it was it was a little cool. And all 3 of them did not cover against the spread. And some will argue, well, Arizona should have covered. Well, Arizona was +3 in turnover. So there was a minor miracle that they were only down 7 in the fourth quarter. A little bit of a phony final. Seattle dominated the game.
You have kind of like a benchmark or a point of demarcation for what you would say weather-wise for that type of scenario?
I think 25 degrees or more differential versus what you're used to playing at home. So if you're used to playing in 60 degrees and you got to go to 30,
sure,
that's bad. But if you're used to playing in 85 and you got to go to 55, it sounds easy, but I think it just throws off the timing a little bit. Yes.
As I like to do, and we like to do with Steve Fezzik, I want to get some takeaways from the week that was in the NFL. In the next segment, we'll jump into Monday Night Football and see if Steve has a play. Why don't we start with the end there? Last night, Miami-Philly, a 31-17 winner for the Eagles. Did you take anything particularly away that bettors can implement moving forward with the Eagles and the Dolphins?
The Eagles are always going to be undervalued because it's 1st and 9 every single possession. Because if they ever have 4th and 1, they don't need to punt because it's an automatic first down. I got to ask you guys, I don't know why this is the case. I understand you have the threat at midfield on 4th and 1 that your quarterback could still throw the ball, but when you get to the goal line, 4th and 1, why is not every NFL team, why would you put your quarterback out there? Why would you not have a fullback that basically a rugby player to advance the ball forward a yard and a half, and 2 other big, strong rugby players that can bench or that can squat 600 pounds, pushing the guy that can squat the 600 pounds? You don't have to put your quarterback in harm's way. Why isn't everyone doing that, Amal?
Because to be honest with you, I don't think these coaches are smart enough. When it's 4th and 1 and you take a shotgun and you line up 15 feet behind where the ball has got to go, doesn't even make sense to begin with. You give the team a running start defensively, an advantage.
Do you knock Miami coming out of that game at all?
Well, I have to downgrade them because pretty significantly because of the O-line cluster injuries that occurred. So for performance, half a point, probably another point for injury. Yeah.
All right. Steve Fezzik, we were discussing, I want to ask you about Circa Millions, but before we do, you were discussing during the break something that DraftKings does just about as well or better than anybody in the market, and that's adjusted win totals. Right now, 4-3 Bills over at DraftKings, 9.5 on their season win total. Over is -140.
Yeah, and so this is something DraftKings does better than anybody in terms of putting up lots of product for you to wager on. And I don't want to be like gloom and doom, schlep rock with the black cloud over my head. Oh, it's so hard to win. Like, here's a great opportunity. Do your homework, and each and every week evaluate whether you think a team is going to go over or under their season wins. As an example, DraftKings had a Jets season win number, I think last week, as low as 6.5, and I bet over. And I was like, the Jets are going to go 8-9. The Jets are a almost average team with an average record, and I would be very surprised if you did your homework and just focused on that market, season wins, week in, week out. I think you're going to do very well, especially if you can identify a team that is just going to evaluate talent going forward and no longer is going to prioritize winning versus a team like the Jets that's going to be all in all year long.
2 teams I wanted to ask you about because of the quarterback situation. Dustin, I believe you have an update on Deshaun Watson, who looks like he's getting an MRI. And then once you give that update, let's go to Fez and see what his Cleveland Browns, what we think about them moving forward from a betting perspective. Go ahead, Dustin.
Well, one, we're getting some lying from Kevin Stefanski. We played the clip earlier in the show where he said he pulled Deshaun Watson out because he was the franchise quarterback, didn't want to risk him getting hurt yesterday. After the game, then also said that he would evaluate Watson during the week, but kind of said that he would be the starter again this week. Now it turns out the reports are coming out that the Browns are waiting on an MRI on Deshaun Watson's shoulder, which just changes everything about the dynamics of this team.
So I have a power rating for each team, and right now Cleveland I have as being 1 point better than an average team. That puts them the 11th best team, but that's a Walker power rating. So, but now I'm thinking, is it going to really matter if Watson comes back? And he played terribly before he got injured, in the game against Indy. Maybe I upgrade them only a point. The defense is awesome, and Chubb is missing, and now you got compromised quarterback play. Probably look towards unders with the Browns. I don't see any other way you could go, despite the point barrage last week.
I like that call on the under. You got a combination of ineptitude offensively and then defensively. These guys, even though they gave up points yesterday, Patrick, still an elite team. Quick update from the bank. Tommy Pham with a home run. I think it was Jock Peterson who pitched it, but 1-0 right now, Arizona.
Okay, the Snakes jump on the board first there. They were a big price today in Game 6. Okay, let's talk about the Giants because Dustin, who's a Giants fan, Mr. Fezzik, says, Daniel Jones, I'm done. Tyrod Taylor, I'm in. So let me get your differences as far as power rankings there with the Giants. And, of course, you've got the Jets-Giants coming up this weekend. Right now we're showing 3, 2.5 at a shop on the Jets.
So I have the Giants, the second worst team in the NFL, 5.5 points worse than an average team. And now if I get Danny Dimes in, do I upgrade them? Now, obviously, he's got the better talent, but the team chemistry sure looks better with the other guy. I don't think it would be much of an upgrade at all. Baseball, this is not a live betting show, but I'm curious. I would think the Phillies still be a modest favorite, Dustin, right now, minus maybe 122 or something.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I'll get you the number right now. In-game, Major League Baseball with the Phillies, with the Snakes taking a 1-0 lead, do we think the Phillies are still your favorites here? The number, looks like it's 2-0, right?
Must be, because
you might be ahead of us. Yep. Nope, we don't have that yet.
Let's check. Must be based on the price.
Yeah, we have 1-0
Gone.
Guriel, and
I think you're
there
about to see something. I think you're about to see something, is what I'm saying.
Guriel, back-to-back
the
shots.
barrels.
The D-backs at 2-0. The D-backs just went to 160. So yes, my assumption is it would have been right around even there, Fez.
I think we can get Steve's thoughts on this. Look, I am the conspiracy theorist on the show. What we just witnessed and the TVs all being behind now is a great conspiracy from the sports books and cable providers to make sure we can't win live bets anymore, Steve.
Yeah, as far as the transparency of all of it, I would recommend to everybody, be very careful, and I would only bet during TV timeouts because, let's face it, during a TV timeout, a lot of places you can shop and compare lines and the like, but the last thing you want to do is to be making a bet that you think is based upon a certain state of a game, especially football, and it's not 1st and 10, it's 2nd and 13 because your quarterback has already been sacked and you like the over and you're unaware of that one play because you are I've been behind by 60 seconds with some games that I'm watching now, and it doesn't matter if I watch in high def, low def, you're just too far behind to be able to wager while the games are going on.
Yeah, the earliest you're probably going to be DirecTV's about 27 to 33 seconds depending on your feed, it's the best is if you're on local TV on the antenna. That's your quickest one, but still everything is far behind.
Well, I was going to say, if you're in Henderson, Nevada, and you can't find tinfoil, that's because Steve Fezzik has bought all of it for the antennas there at the Fezzik household. Because you used to go straight to the antenna, didn't you, when you were live betting on a standalone game?
I used to do just low definition. The low def was like Amal said, would be like 18 seconds, and the high def was like 35. And now it's all a disaster. I have given up. And you know what? It's so stressful that it's just easier, unless I've got somebody at the stadium. That makes it a lot easier. Yep. Then I'm just going to wait for the TV timeout and shop for the best number.
But Patrick, I was at the Pac-12 championship game, I think last year or 2 years ago, whenever UCLA and Arizona played. And I got to tell you, the apps are very quick in terms of they must be contracted with the conferences because there's no way statistically could it update as quick as the scoreboard is. I mean, it's about a second and a half behind on a made free throw.
Let's get to Steve's Monday Night Football thoughts here. And San Francisco is $7.10 at DraftKings, so we'll call it a solid 7 and 43.5. Walk us through your thought process here, Steve, for Monday Night Football.
Obviously, concerns about Justin Jefferson. He's worth, I would argue, 1.5. If he was with some other team with more capable receivers, he'd be worth a full point. But he's God, and Minnesota's struggles on offense. Further, I'm worried about Kirk Cousins, and he doesn't do as well in prime time. Having said all that, I did watch all of the Cleveland-San Francisco game, and that was just such a war. And seeing, their offensive linemen go down, and then seeing C-Mac, bleeding all over himself, like he was a stalker that Big Ben Richards had thrown against a wall, and Debo being out. There's just too many injuries for San Fran, and back-to-back what's going to be a tough physical game here of the Vikings. I think San Fran probably finds a way to win by 4 or 6 points. I took the value, and I took it in the Circa Millions. Wish me luck. Somehow, despite going 0-5 on a podcast last week, I'm 24-10 in a Circa Millions.
Wow.
And if I win this game, I believe I'm going to be a game and a half out, but I need the Vikings +7.
I love his play on. Sorry,
game and a half out of first place?
Yes, sir.
Very nice.
Good for you, Steve. Great job, man.
Mike Mattisau once said it best, though, when he's in a poker tournament, this is so hard. I'm run better than God. I'm winning all the Plinko games with that entry. And Mattisau said, ain't going to be easy to beat 5,000 people. You got to get millions and millions of chips. You got to run good.
I'm actually surprised the Circa Millions contest first prize is $1 million, and in Survivor you can win $9 million. Because the winning in the contest, the Circa Millions, to me is so much more difficult.
I agree with you, but the beauty of the Survivor, here's why Survivor is so popular. And let's face it, people had a 15% overlay in Millions. They said, nah, I don't want the 15%. I'll just pay full fare and play Survivor. And here's why. How fun is Survivor? Everyone that's still alive, Patrick, is the chip leader. Every single one. You're not 4 games out or 3 games out. You're the chip leader.
Yeah, it's for dummies. Anybody knows. Anybody can play Survivor. It's for donks. 43.5 on the total tonight. Do you have anything here, Fez?
I will lean to the under just because I think it's such a hit to the Viking offense. And let's face it, the Vikings' performance against Badgett, we were poo-pooing that. It's well, the Bears had their backup quarterback. Well, I watched Badgett. He was so good against the Raiders. Not just the Raiders were bad, yes, but just the way he was so savvy pump faking when he was running down the field. He seemed very, very capable. So I'm going to upgrade the Viking defense more for their performance. Great performance against the Bears.
Okay. Steve, it's great to see you. I'm glad you're feeling better. And if you missed any of the picks, and you gave out plenty today, go to VSiN.com/subscribe to sign up. You can find Steve Fezzik. You said you've been on fire in college. Go ahead and peacock a little bit. What's going on with your college record?
14-2-1 the last 2 weeks, and accolades to all the college football experts that I work with. Sorry, guys, I'll do better in my NFL.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.